Shocking, Danish royal family's forbidden love affairs that could destroy the monarchy forever. Welcome to BNews. What if the fairy tale image of European royalty was built on centuries of forbidden love, covered-up scandals, and dark secrets that could topple an entire monarchy? Today, we're pulling back the velvet curtain on Denmark's royal family to reveal shocking truths that have been hidden from the public for generations. Before we dive into these explosive revelations, make sure to hit that like button if you're ready for the truth, subscribe for more royal exposés, and ring the notification bell because this story is about to change everything you thought you knew about the Danish crown. The Danish monarchy has long been regarded as one of Europe's most stable and beloved royal institutions. Queen Margrethe II, who reigned for over 5 decades before her abdication in January 2024, was often praised for her dignity, intellect, and unwavering commitment to her people. King Frederik X, who assumed the throne on January 14, 2024, was expected to continue this legacy of respectability and tradition. However, beneath the polished exterior of Amalienborg Palace and the carefully orchestrated public appearances lies a web of forbidden romances, political intrigue, and family secrets that threaten to unravel centuries of royal tradition. The Danish royal family's carefully maintained image as a modern, accessible monarchy has been built on a foundation of selective disclosure and strategic silence. While the public sees the glamorous state dinners, the charitable engagements, and the picture-perfect family moments, palace insiders have long whispered about the darker realities behind closed doors. These whispers have grown louder in recent months, as new revelations emerge about affairs, power struggles, and forbidden relationships that span generations of Danish royalty. The timing of these revelations couldn't be more precarious for the monarchy. With King Frederik X still establishing his reign and facing unprecedented challenges in maintaining public support, any scandal could prove catastrophic. The Danish people, known for their progressive values and high expectations of transparency, may not be as forgiving as previous generations when it comes to royal indiscretions. The very survival of the monarchy may depend on how these emerging scandals are handled in the coming months. Long before King Frederik X ascended to the throne, his romantic life was the subject of intense speculation and carefully managed public relations campaigns. While the official narrative portrayed him as a devoted husband to Crown Princess Mary since their fairy tale wedding in 2004, palace insiders paint a far more complex picture of a prince struggling with the constraints of royal duty and personal desire. Sources close to the royal household reveal that Frederik's path to finding love was fraught with forbidden relationships and near scandals that could have derailed his eventual succession. The most explosive revelation centers around Frederik's relationship with a prominent Danish businesswoman in the late 1990s, a romance that palace officials went to extraordinary lengths to conceal from the public. This relationship, which lasted nearly 2 years, was deemed unsuitable by the royal court not because of the woman's character or accomplishments, but because of her family's complicated political connections and her previous marriage to a controversial media mogul. Palace security and communications teams allegedly monitored phone calls, orchestrated strategic separations, and even arranged for the woman to receive lucrative business opportunities abroad to end the relationship quietly. The psychological toll of these forced separations and the constant scrutiny of his personal life reportedly led Frederik to periods of rebellion against royal protocol. Former palace staff describe a prince who would sometimes disappear for days, avoiding official duties and seeking refuge in private clubs and exclusive retreats where he could temporarily escape the burden of his royal identity. These episodes of withdrawal became so concerning that Queen Margrethe allegedly sought private counseling for her son, though such arrangements were made under the strictest confidentiality agreements to prevent any public knowledge of the Crown Prince's struggles with his royal responsibilities. The love story between Crown Prince Frederik and Mary Donaldson, an Australian commoner who met the prince in a Sydney bar during the 2000 Olympics, has been retold countless times as a modern fairy tale. However, the reality of Mary's transformation from advertising executive to Danish royalty involved far more than language lessons and protocol training. According to former palace staff and confidential documents obtained through unnamed sources, Mary's integration into the Danish royal family was marked by intense psychological pressure, cultural isolation, and several attempts to leave Denmark permanently. The most closely guarded secret surrounding Queen Mary involves her alleged nervous breakdown in 2006, just 2 years after her wedding to Frederick. Sources indicate that the combination of intense media scrutiny, the demands of royal motherhood, and the suffocating protocol of palace life led to a crisis that required immediate intervention. Palace physicians, sworn to absolute secrecy, reportedly provided round-the-clock care for several weeks, while official statements attributed Mary's absence from public duties to a minor illness. The recovery process allegedly involved intensive therapy sessions and temporary separations from royal duties that were carefully disguised as private family time. Even more shocking are the revelations about Mary's attempts to maintain connections with her former life in Australia. Palace security reportedly monitored and restricted her communications with friends and former colleagues, viewing any independent relationships as potential security risks and sources of unwanted publicity. Former staff members describe a queen who often appeared isolated and melancholy during private moments, struggling to balance her authentic self with the rigid expectations of royal life. These struggles allegedly intensified during the early years of her children's lives, as Mary grappled with raising royal heirs while maintaining some semblance of normalcy and personal identity. The Danish succession has been plagued by tensions and rivalries that extend far beyond the typical family dynamics found in ordinary households. Prince Joachim, King Frederick's younger brother, has long been viewed as the more charismatic and naturally gifted of Queen Margrethe's sons, leading to decades of carefully concealed sibling rivalry that has occasionally erupted into public view. The most dramatic manifestation of these tensions occurred in 2022 when Queen Margrethe made the controversial decision to strip Joachim's children of their princely titles, a move that created a permanent rift in the family and exposed the ruthless calculations behind royal succession planning. Behind this public controversy lies a far more complex web of financial disputes, inheritance battles, and personal grievances that have divided the royal family for years. Sources close to the family reveal that Prince Joachim had long harbored resentment over the unequal treatment he received compared to his older brother, including disparities in financial support, official duties, and public recognition. These grievances allegedly came to a head during private family meetings where heated exchanges about money, property, and future roles led to threats of public disclosure and counter-threats of complete exclusion from royal activities. The situation became even more complicated with the involvement of Joachim's wives and children in these family disputes. Princess Marie, Joachim's second wife, reportedly refused to accept the diminished status imposed by the Queen's decision and allegedly threatened to publish a tell-all memoir about her experiences in the Danish royal family. Palace lawyers and communications specialists have been working overtime to prevent such a publication, offering financial settlements and alternative arrangements to maintain family unity and prevent public embarrassment. The ongoing nature of these negotiations suggests that the royal family's internal conflicts are far from resolved and could explode into public view at any moment. Perhaps the most scandalous aspect of the Danish royal family's hidden history involves the numerous romantic entanglements between royals and their staff members, relationships that violate centuries of protocol and threaten the hierarchical structure that maintains royal authority. These affairs, spanning several decades and involving multiple family members, have created a complex web of loyalties, secrets, and potential blackmail situations that palace security considers among their highest priority concerns. The most serious of these relationships allegedly involved a senior member of the royal family and a personal secretary whose affair lasted nearly a decade and produced a child whose parentage has been carefully concealed through legal agreements and financial settlements. Sources indicate that this relationship began in the early 2000s during a particularly turbulent period for the monarchy and continued despite multiple attempts by palace officials to end the affair through transfers, promotions, and even overseas assignments. The birth of the child created a crisis that required the involvement of the highest levels of government and led to new protocols designed to prevent similar situations in the future. These romantic entanglements extend beyond individual relationships to encompass a culture within the palace that has historically blurred the lines between professional and personal relationships. Former staff members describe an environment where emotional intimacy and physical attraction were almost inevitable given the isolated, high-pressure circumstances of royal service. The close quarters, long hours, and shared experiences of serving the crown created bonds that often transcended professional boundaries, leading to relationships that palace administrators viewed as both security risks and protocol violations. The psychological impact of these forbidden relationships on all parties involved cannot be understated. Staff members who became romantically involved with royals often found themselves in impossible situations, torn between personal feelings and professional obligations while facing the constant threat of exposure and career destruction. Similarly, royal family members involved in these affairs struggled with guilt over their violation of royal duty while being unable to resist the genuine human connections they had formed with people who saw them as individuals rather than symbols of state power. Queen Margrethe II's public image as a constitutional monarch who stayed above political controversies masked a far more complex reality in which she wielded significant behind-the-scenes influence over Danish politics and international relations. Recently revealed documents and testimony from former government officials paint a picture of a queen who was deeply involved in political decision-making, often using unofficial channels and personal relationships to shape policy outcomes in ways that would have been considered highly inappropriate if known to the public. The most significant revelation involves Queen Margrethe's alleged role in influencing Denmark's position on European Union policies, particularly regarding immigration and economic integration. Sources indicate that the Queen maintained private correspondence with EU officials and foreign heads of state, communications that were not recorded in official diplomatic channels and may have contradicted the publicly stated positions of elected Danish governments. These communications allegedly included promises of Danish support for certain initiatives in exchange for favorable treatment in other areas, arrangements that would have been impossible to make through normal diplomatic channels. Even more controversial are allegations that Queen Margrethe used her position to advance the business interests of certain Danish companies, particularly those with connections to the royal family's financial holdings. Former palace staff describe meetings between the Queen and business leaders that were arranged outside of official protocols and never recorded in court circulars or official schedules. These meetings allegedly resulted in preferential treatment for certain companies in government contracts and international trade agreements, raising serious questions about the separation between royal ceremonial duties and actual political power. The implications of these revelations extend far beyond questions of propriety to fundamental issues about democratic governance and constitutional monarchy. If proven accurate, these allegations suggest that Denmark's political system has been operating under false pretenses, with significant decisions being influenced by an unelected monarch whose political activities were hidden from both Parliament and the public. The current government's response to these allegations will likely determine whether these revelations become a constitutional crisis or are successfully contained through official denials and legal challenges. The Danish royal family's financial arrangements have long been shrouded in secrecy, with public information limited to the official civil list payments approved by Parliament. However, recent investigations by financial journalists and leaked documents from offshore banking institutions reveal a complex web of investments, tax avoidance schemes, and questionable financial relationships that suggest the royal family's actual wealth far exceeds public estimates and may have been accumulated through methods that would be considered ethically dubious if not legally problematic. The most damaging revelations involve the use of offshore shell companies and foreign investment vehicles to hide royal assets and avoid Danish taxation. Documents obtained from a major international law firm show that several members of the royal family established complex corporate structures in tax havens including Luxembourg, Switzerland, and the Cayman Islands. These arrangements allegedly allowed them to receive income from various sources while avoiding the higher tax rates that ordinary Danish citizens must pay, a situation that directly contradicts the royal family's public image as exemplars of Danish values and civic responsibility. Perhaps even more troubling are allegations that some of these financial arrangements involved partnerships with individuals and organizations whose reputations and business practices would normally make them unsuitable associates for members of the royal family. Sources indicate that royal investments were made in companies involved in arms dealing, environmental destruction, and labor exploitation in developing countries. These investments were allegedly made through intermediaries and shell companies specifically to prevent public knowledge of the royal family's involvement in these controversial business activities. The discovery of these financial arrangements has created a crisis within the palace administration, with urgent meetings between royal advisors, government officials, and tax authorities to determine the legal implications and develop strategies for addressing public concerns. The situation is complicated by the fact that many of these financial structures may have been legal at the time they were established, even if they violate current ethical standards and public expectations for royal behavior. The resolution of this financial scandal may require legislative changes to royal financial oversight and could result in significant changes to how the monarchy is funded and regulated in the future. Despite their public image as a devoted couple, King Frederick and Queen Mary's marriage has reportedly been under severe strain for several years, with palace insiders describing a relationship marked by long separations, heated private arguments, and fundamentally different visions for their roles as monarchs. The pressures of ascending to the throne have allegedly intensified these existing tensions, leading to speculation about the long-term viability of their marriage and its potential impact on the stability of the Danish monarchy. The core of their marital problems allegedly stems from disagreements about how to balance royal duties with personal autonomy and family life. Sources close to the couple describe Frederick as someone who has struggled with the restrictions of royal life throughout his adult life and who hoped that becoming king would provide him with more freedom to pursue his interests and relationships. Mary, conversely, is described as someone who has fully embraced her royal role and expects her husband to demonstrate the same level of commitment and dignity that she has maintained throughout their marriage. These philosophical differences have reportedly manifested in practical conflicts over everything from official schedules and public appearances to the upbringing of their children and their relationships with extended family members. Former staff members describe a couple who often communicated through intermediaries rather than directly, with each maintaining separate social circles and pursuing independent activities that sometimes conflicted with joint royal obligations. The situation allegedly became so tense that palace administrators developed separate protocols for managing the couple's schedules to minimize potential conflicts and public embarrassment. The impact of these marital problems on their children has been a particular source of concern for palace officials and child welfare advocates within the royal household. Sources indicate that the 4 royal children have been affected by their parents' tensions, with behavioral changes and academic problems that have required intervention from private tutors and counselors. The challenge of maintaining the public fiction of a happy royal family while managing the reality of a troubled marriage has placed enormous stress on all family members and created additional security and protocol challenges for palace staff. The accumulation of scandals, family conflicts, and public relations disasters has led to serious discussions within Danish political circles about the future of the monarchy and contingency planning for potential constitutional changes. While public support for the royal family remains relatively strong, political analysts warn that the combination of financial scandals, personal indiscretions, and family dysfunction could create a tipping point that forces Denmark to confront fundamental questions about the role of monarchy in a modern democratic society. The most immediate concern involves the succession planning for the next generation of royals. Crown Prince Christian, Frederick and Mary's eldest son, is still a teenager and has already